History has a way of repeating itself. What happens when the voices of the people are silenced? From colonial Kenya to the modern day, the fight for freedom of speech and the right to dissent remains a constant battle. In this video, we explore how Kenya's past mirrors its present struggles. During Kenya's colonial period, the British government ruled with an iron fist. Dissent was not only frowned upon, but actively suppressed. Newspapers and public speeches were heavily censored to ensure the colonial administration's control over public opinion. One of the most significant uprisings against British rule was the Mau Mau Rebellion in the 1950s. Kenyan nationalists fought against the colonial government, demanding land reforms, freedom, and the right to self-govern. However, the British responded with brutal force. Newspapers were shut down, activists detained, and any form of dissent met with severe punishment. The colonial regime introduced laws like the Public Order Act and press censorship regulations, limiting what could be published and how people could gather to protest. Even prominent leaders like Jomo Kenyatta faced imprisonment simply for voicing opposition. A modern law similar is the Assembly and Demonstrations Bill, which was introduced in the year 2024, and it assumed specific urgency in light of the nationwide protests around the Finance Bill 2024. This bill imposes disproportionate restrictions upon the fundamental right to assembly and to demonstrate. When Kenya gained independence in 1963, it was a time of hope and celebration. However, the new government inherited many of the colonial-era laws, including those restricting freedom of speech and dissent. Leaders like Jomo Kenyatta and Daniel Arap Moi carried forward some of these authoritarian tactics. Throughout the 1970s and 1980s, dissenting voices were often silenced. Political opponents were detained without trial, and journalists critical of the government were targeted. This was most evident during the rule of Daniel Arap Moi, whose government controlled the press and quelled any opposition. And today is not any different. In June 2024, thousands of Kenyans flooded the streets as a consequence of massive economic pressure and bad governance. Shortly after, activists and the common citizens ended up arrested, abducted, physically injured, and/or killed because of criticizing the government. Today, Kenya is a multi-party democracy, and the media landscape is more diverse. But despite this progress, the fight for freedom of speech and dissent continues. Laws like the Computer Misuse and Cybercrimes Act have been criticized for stifling free speech, particularly online. Recent years have seen journalists facing harassment and activists arrested for criticizing the government. In 2024, Amnesty International reported the abductions of citizens suspected of involvement in the #RejectFinance Bill 2024 protests, which is a gross violation of human rights prohibited under Article 29 of the Constitution of Kenya, 2010. Social media has become a powerful platform for dissent, with citizens airing their views on X Spaces, podcasts, and uploading online posts. However, it has also come under government scrutiny. Content creators and online activists face a new form of censorship as the state attempts to regulate the digital space, much like how colonial authorities regulated print media and public speech. As Kenya evolves, the echoes of its colonial past continue to resonate. The struggle for freedom of speech and the right to dissent remains a pivotal part of its story. From colonial times to the present day, Kenyans have never stopped fighting for their voices to be heard. As we reflect on the past, it's important to engage in the present. Let's support the fight for free speech, stand up for those silenced, and continue pushing for a more democratic Kenya. If this history has taught us anything, it's that the battle for freedom is far from over. If you enjoyed this video, don't forget to like, subscribe, and share. What are your thoughts on Kenya's ongoing fight for free speech? Leave a comment below.